So yeah, I'm Raisa. I'm a staff writer at Time, and I am thrilled to be here with Rachel, who is one of those people who really needs no introduction, but I will do it anyway. We all know Rachel has been an incredible stylist working with celebrities and high-profile clients. She has been a pioneer in the reality TV space, in editorial and media platforms, in brand collaborations, and as a designer and an entrepreneur herself. So Rachel, welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yeah. So as Jordana mentioned, the title of this final talk of the day is Fashion is a Journey. And I can't think of anyone who's had more of an interesting journey than you in this industry, truly, because at every step, it feels like your choices have really reflected or been trend-setting in terms of what comes next and what we've seen in a lot of the innovation in fashion. So let's start with, where are you at on the journey now? I know you're in the process of relaunching and rebranding your subscription box service. So let's get into that first.
Very exciting. Box of Style, we like to say Curator, formerly known as Box of Style. And Box of Style was born about 5 years ago. Out of this idea that my husband and co-CEO, Roger, and I really came up with to try and curate for women and try and curate for as many women as I possibly can, and somehow really still touch it and be so immersed in it, and really try and touch as many women as possible, because that's the thing I sort of get asked most to do. Like, dress me, what would you do if I was saying this? If I have a first date, or if I'm, starting a new season, what should I buy? And so it really was born out of that idea. And so Curator, several years later, was born out of the idea of, what more can I give women? And what can this be beyond the box? And because we've had such tremendous success with Box of Style, we really said, okay, what more can we give our amazing community that we've built? And so Curator is French for curator. And the idea is that I really want to curate women's lives completely. And so it's now, Curator is more of a women's lifestyle membership program. So it is, of course, still the Box of Style, but it's also, oh God, I just lost you. Hold on a second. Sorry.
It's all good. It's the Zoom life. We're all living it.
Like, people inevitably call whenever I'm doing something live. But the idea is that this is really going to be so much more beyond the box, and you still, of course, get your box and your curation, of course, but it's more than that. And we're going to have, marketplace and the shop and the collective and all of these things. So, yeah, super exciting.
Well, it's interesting to me because that really reflects, I think, people's interest in finding community and personalized community now, which is so important, and sort of aligning themselves with brands and platforms that share their values and present the lifestyle that they want to be a part of. And it's an interesting evolution, because I think of your early work as sort of part of this moment of the singularity of pop culture and fashion in a way. And now I'm really curious where you think we're at now. Are people breaking away from that and seeking out these smaller opportunities or ways to connect in different ways with brands and products?
It's interesting. I think, so let me understand the question. You think in terms of when it was styling and working with different designers for placement on celebrities and things like that versus what people are doing now?
Yeah, it feels like there's more of an interest in connecting on a personal level and not just an icon level.
Yeah, because I think that was sort of why influencers were sort of born into this community, was because I think, in a sense, they are more attainable and real, right? And I think that I think a brand is only as valuable as the person behind it now, unless, if it is a brand of a person, if that makes sense. So I think you have to really be very clear on your mission of your brand, the focus of your brand, what you mean not only to yourself, but to the greater world in terms of what you want to do for people. And in my case, the mission of my brand has always been to empower women to live a life of style, and whatever that means. And however I can continue to do that on my journey is what I do. And I think now there's so many different ways. There's collaborations. There's, I think obviously, as you've seen, everyone kind of shifting into e-commerce and direct to consumer. And I think obviously in COVID, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation as to what's happened into what people are buying, what people are interested in, and the psychology of people right now, right?
Yeah. And what are you noticing in terms of how consumers are interacting now with products that they're interested in, or how are you looking at trying to figure out what will resonate with these women right now because of everything that's changed in the world lately?
It's a really good question. And funny enough, my mission behind Curator has always been when I'm there and we're looking at all these products, it's not necessarily, how do I explain it? What I really go through in my mind when I'm choosing an item, where is she wearing this? Why does she want this? Okay, and there's different psychology behind a beauty item versus like an accessory or a fashion item. Because where is she wearing this? What is her? What are these women? Where are they going in this? How are they using it? Is it just going to sit on a shelf? Is it going to, So I think there's a lot of questions that I really ask myself, and I do know one thing that she really does care about is value. And that is something, so our current, at our launch, the value is over $700. And, you're really paying $99.99 or $350 for the year, $349.99. But the reality of it is, I want to give her things that she's going to use, love, covet, or if she didn't know she wanted them, she's so excited to have them. And then it's one of those things, a constant thing we hear is like, I didn't even know I needed this, but now I'm obsessed with it. Or I didn't know that I even wanted this, but now I can't stop thinking about it. Or this beauty product that I can't wait to buy again. So I kind of like to think of it as that I'm sort of a gateway between women and what they may not have known that they needed. And I think as we're in COVID, I already came from a very pragmatic place when I do these curations. I really like to think very hard about the pragmatic, in the pragmatic sense, because I think a lot of people think with me, I'm like, oh, you should just spend on this or buy this, you'll wear it at some point. And like, of course, there's that element if you're a collector or someone that just likes to look at pretty things in your closet. But I really believe that the women that are in our community are sort of coming to us to sort of say, this is what you need. And if there's 5 things that you need this season, these are going to add. It may not be the only 5 things, but it's certainly you're going to be happy about it. And I think in COVID, I think we really now thinking about much more at home and much more cozy and much more functional and, transcending all seasons, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've lived almost exclusively in athleisure for like 6 months. So thank you for
the rest of the world.
Fashion Week from home.
The rest of the world.
So when you are stepping back even farther, Curator is only one of the things that you're working on.
Yeah.
When you're choosing how you want to interact with the fashion world right now and what you want to put your energy towards, because you also have a family and a lot of demands on your time, what is rising to the top for you? What's exciting for you to work on? And what is standing out?
I have things that I work on have to check certain boxes. They either have to be really like thought-provoking, inspiring, exciting, motivating, and the like. And if it's not those things, it could also be just a really good business decision, if that makes sense, and something where I see potential growth and something becoming, much larger, like when I invest in companies, because I really love to do that. And really helping, am an advisor in a lot of companies, and I really love doing that. So I really love consulting, and I really love working with brands that are very passionate and, need support. And I think they have a really good shot at a really big future. But I also love creative directing, and I also love partnering with different brands. And it could be anything from gin to swimwear to, and I love doing that because I love being a part of everything and somehow making it prettier.
Yeah.
Or cuter. My favorite.
Always a little more beauty in our lives.
Listen, I've worked on everything from, strollers and car seats to, like I said, to alcohol, and I think that all things should be as chic as possible. Why not? I think it makes you happier when you look at it.
Absolutely. I agree. So one of the other things I've noticed, especially in the last few months in the fashion world, is that there's a
oh no! Wait, you froze.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
There's a desire from consumers to connect with brands who are really accountable and conscious about what's happening in the world, what's happening to the earth. So I'm curious how you think that has changed over the last decade and how you approach those kinds of questions.
It's a really good question, actually. And, not to go back to it, but even with Curator, we made a huge shift in sustainability and packaging and the like every possible thing that we could do. And we're obviously going to keep going. And it's this weird, amazing thing in this time that you have a sense of guilt when you don't do that. And I actually love that, because I think that's when things really start to change. When you start to be affected by the lack of changing something for the better in sustainability. And I think, listen, there's really amazing pioneers. I'd like to say Stella McCartney would certainly be one of the very first, I would say the first luxury designer to really stand strongly by her message and be so successful at it. Mm-hmm. And I think now you're seeing so many people do it. And I think that the younger generation, I think as we go, it's going to matter even more, because I think it's really starting to affect people's decisions as to what they buy, and whether that's in beauty, in accessories, in clothing, in home. I mean, honestly, in anything. And I think, I know for myself, it's like if you are about to buy two things, you immediately go to the clean or sustainable. I mean, it just makes you feel better. I know for me, the turning point was when I became a mother. And as a company, it's definitely something so at the forefront of our thoughts, our actions, and our mission, for sure.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
So you have, as we've mentioned, played a lot of different roles over the years. I read that you even started out as a restaurant hostess before you got your first magazine job.
I actually told my dad that's what I was doing for the rest of my life. I called him into my junior year of college, and I was like, "This is it, Dad. This is what I'm doing. This is my favorite thing I've ever done. I loved being a restaurant hostess."
That's amazing. I mean, well, then two questions. First question is, do we see a restaurant in the future? And second question is, what is your advice to people who are just starting out and trying to figure out how to get their foot in the door?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a restaurant in the future, other than attending them, probably not, possibly investing in one, but definitely not starting one. I have so many friends in the food industry, and I got to tell you, even for the best of the best, it is a struggle. And it's a really, I think people don't understand until you're in it. Even when I was a hostess, I saw it. I mean, the hours that you keep, it's an insane life. So no, other than maybe designing a restaurant,
that could be cool.
But no. But that said, I should also sort of say as a caveat to that anything I've ever said I would never do, I've done. So I really made a promise to myself that I would never say that again. So you never know.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's important is you've taken a lot of risks, and especially from traditional fashion perspective, not everyone would jump into reality TV or start a website or be interested in those things. So how did you develop the confidence to feel like you had the foundation that could take you from there?
It's weird. I kind of always knew that I was not, I knew that I wasn't going to follow a traditional path. You just have to kind of know that about yourself. I think as a young person, I was very unclear about what I was going to do with my life. And the truth is that, I thought I was going to be a psychiatrist, a child psychiatrist. That was my major in college. I loved sociology and psychology, but I'll be very, honest about the fact that I really didn't like being a student. And I think, when I found out in order to actually be that, you had to go to a lot more school. And I really, from the age of 16, was ready to start my life. I just was that person. So I did go through college and I did get my, BA and all that. But ultimately, I fell into a job as a fashion assistant. And I knew that I was obsessed with what I was doing. I was being paid nothing, literally nothing. I mean, what today would be considered illegal. But I think... but I lived for it. And so I didn't care. That was the thing. It was very Sarah Jessica Parker, you just starved for fashion. It's you loved it. Yeah. And I didn't care. I really loved it that much. And I think I really had an incredibly supportive family and, husband. And I think with that, it's not a confidence that I have in myself. I think when you are surrounded by people that lift you up, when you have parents that are go for it, do it. This is your art. This is your, there were moments where I wanted to quit and I wanted to get out of it. And I felt like I was superficial and I felt like it didn't mean anything to people. And, all of that, when you have people that you love and you trust that are really just rooting for you, I think that really helps in those moments. But I think transitioning to television, that was definitely at the top of the list of the thing I'd never, ever, ever do. And being a stylist, even still, I'm way more comfortable behind the scenes. And a stylist is a very behind the scenes job, or used to be anyway. And, it's sort of I wanted to do a show that was very much like Elsa Clinch, CNN style. And I really was obsessed with her. And I loved how she got to speak to John Galliano and Karl Lagerfeld and Giorgio Armani. And I was so obsessed with them and they were my heroes and they were my lifeline. So I was I want that job. I want to talk to them. I want to get into their minds. But then, when life happens and then production and then Bravo, and then all of a sudden it's a show about, my life and my studio and my assistants and all that. And, at the end of the day, what I really wanted to do, and I think in effect, when I listen to it now, I think it really did have that impact on people, effect on people. I really wanted to give people insight into the fashion world because I think there was such a mystery about what fashion people actually did and what designers actually did and how things went from a clothing rack or a runway show and then ended up on Julia Roberts or something, and I wanted to demystify that a little bit, so that was that. And, the books, again, a thing I said I'd never do. But that was really fun. That was really cathartic for me doing my style books. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, starting a media business, a lot of that is my husband, I think the two of us together, he's so media savvy and business savvy and, brand. He's very, he's just very forward thinking in that way. And, he was one of the founders of the Webby Awards. And so I think his background combined with my background and the insanity of all of it, I think just us being together was sort of okay, what's next,
Yeah, so much of it is about building the right team, really, so that, you're surrounded by people who will push you in the right directions, open your eyes to innovative thinking and be a part of it.
And it's gut. It's really gut. It's really, I wish I could say I wrote a list of what I was going to do, but I genuinely didn't. And if I did, I would have changed it a million times. And I would say to young people, this is a really challenging time right now, more than ever, to obviously get a job. I think to focus on obviously direct to consumer and the like. But I do think if there's a world that you can really make a career out of your passion and what you love, that's the ultimate gift in life. It has really served me, and people I know that are the greatest success genuinely live and die for what they do. It's second only to their family, and I think that it really does wake you up differently in the morning when you love what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that, and I think if you have the opportunity, I would take this time to take a gap year. It's not like you can really travel, but really take this time to kind of spend the time thinking about what you want. Maybe I've had some young people in my life ask me if I think they should get go to grad school now and take this year as an opportunity to just add value to their, to their repertoire. And I think, yes, like if that's of interest to you, why not?
Yeah.
Like you're just that much more valuable,
Yeah. Take the risks and
just do it. I mean, listen, I took a lot of risks in my career. I mean, when I look back at it, I'm like, what were you thinking?
And so question, any regrets? I mean, are there any things that you would have liked to do better?
I mean, yeah, of course. Definitely. I mean, I think not necessarily ones that would be obvious to people, but I think to me for sure, I hear all the time, like, oh my God, you're always successful. You don't fail. I'm like, of course I failed. I have failed countless amounts of times. It's just like, first of all, I think it depends on what you consider a failure, but I also think to that end, and I know it's so cliche, but it's like my failures have 100% made me who I am. Sometimes failure is okay because it has to wake you up. You have to be like, I can't really be great at everything, and that's okay. And, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people I would choose to have not had on my journey along the way. I would have really, I think things would have been a bit better, easier at many times, and maybe even different today if I didn't have certain people in my life, but I think that's just, it's like what life is. You have to learn. You can't always have like fabulous, amazing, rosy people in your life because then you don't know how to spot the bad ones, Yeah.
I've always believed you have to learn your own lessons. You can't just read them from a book.
Nope.
So we have a question from the audience. What has kept you resilient when going through difficult times?
I would honestly say to that, my family. I would say before having children, I would say my parents and my husband. And I think in really hard times when you want to kind of crawl up and vanish, they really make you want to come back out and say, like, you have a lot left to do. And, this is the impact you're having on people's lives and you can't just like vanish. But then I think even more importantly for me, once I became a mother, that was really the biggest like way to become resilient. You just are, because when you have kids, you just look at them and like everything, you just have to fix it. You got to fix it. You got to just, and my mother said to me, like, you never know how strong you are until you have to be that strong, and I think when you have children, I think you just, as a woman, as a mother, as a woman, as a working mother, I think you just become a warrior. I use that phrase a lot and I really mean it. Like you really start to become a bit of a warrior and you have this visual of you with like these like wings and the field and you're like, I got this, and I'm telling you, it does work.
Yeah.
It really does work. And like I said, I think sometimes I'm a little, when I look back, I'm sort of like, how'd I get through that one? You just do, move on. And then you just go, for me, a lot of times it's been like, I know I'm going to look back on this and laugh someday. And sometimes you do laugh and sometimes you don't laugh, but you go, remember that?
Me too. So speaking of motherhood, another audience question is about that balance between your career and your entrepreneurship and your family life.
Yeah.
What's allowed you to juggle it so far?
You have to sacrifice on some things, I should say. I would say that the biggest sacrifice I've made is, a big part of my job, not in COVID, is actually being out and traveling and being at events and speaking at conference, like doing all of these things that require your physical presence. Yeah. And once I became a mother, there was this gravitational force that really held me to my children, not because like I wanted to leave them, but couldn't. It was more like, this has to really be worth it for me to get on a plane and leave my kids, And I think for me, this sort of like going out all the time and like doing all of that sort of thing and traveling all the time, that is a very thought out, calculated decision now. And I would say I am an extremely hands-on mother. I actually currently don't even have a nanny, but listen, I don't want to miss anything. I love tucking my kids in. I love doing everything with them. It's the most exhausting job I've ever had in my life.
Really?
A lot of jobs, but I think, I have 2 young boys and they're my life. Honestly, they're my life. And I think becoming a later parent in life, I think you're able to sort of sacrifice some of the glamorous events and the social things, and you pick and choose. And I think there's a lot of decisions that you have to change the way you make those decisions.
Yeah. All right. One more audience question. Can you share a moment of difficulty that you turned into an opportunity? So a negative that you were able to turn into a positive, or maybe a failure that you flipped around?
Well, let me think. God, that's a really good question, but one I really have to really spend time thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's been several. I mean, there's definitely been several in my styling career for sure. Even simple things that was okay, the hero dress she was about to wear for the Oscars ended up ripping as she left. And then we had to switch to the backup dress. And guess what? She ended up on the cover of Women's Wear and Vogue.com and so it ended up being a happy accident kind of thing where it turns out really well. But it does happen often, and it happens a lot in our business life where something an opportunity will fall through, and then a way better one comes out, comes to the top that ended up being I can't believe I almost did that one when this one is so much better. And that's happened a lot. I mean, it does happen, which is why I try not to get really down when something doesn't happen. Because, again, it's that cliche, which I guess exists for reasons, but when one door closes, another opens.
Yeah. All right, one more audience question. Okay. What type of startups are you most interested in these days? And I want to add on to that and also ask, and what types of brands have you been gravitating to, or what types of designers are catching your eye on the fashion side? So let's do tech and fashion.
Sure. I would say, the first one, startups. So definitely one that is a way of connecting experts in their field to people, which is amazing. It's an app called Intro, and it's an incredible concept that I really love. There is some very clean and innovative skincare that the foundation of it is something that I think many women and men would find very fascinating, because it really leans on something called hormone disruptors that I think we don't even know what those are, and we've never even heard of them, but yet they're affecting hormones on every level and every stage of your life. So for me, I'm attracted to things where I can see not only myself using it, but women that I know and women that I don't know really wanting to be a part of it, whether it's a product or a service. And it having a very long life, but it has to hit something that isn't already out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't tend to want to attach to things that are in very, very oversaturated already.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What 3 tips would you give an entrepreneur?
Find your voice, your message, your vision. Stay extremely focused. Figure out what it is that you mean to people and what you want to continue to mean to people. What are you giving people that they don't already have? And I don't mean that as a physical product. It could be an experience. It can be a connector. It can be anything. Do not try and you have to surround yourself with people that balance you. You have to surround yourself. You don't necessarily want to find a partner or a team that's exactly like you. You don't want yes people, because you end up in disaster. You want people that are going to help you realize your dreams and execute on your dreams in a very focused and concise manner, if that makes sense. If 2 people sitting there dreaming, nothing's going to happen. Um, you're going to raise a ton of money on an idea that may probably not happen. And then I would say, absolutely stand up for yourself and be your biggest advocate. And you have to be, you know what I mean? You have to believe what you're saying, because when you walk into a room and you don't believe what you're doing or what you're selling or what your future is as a company, no one else is going to believe you.
Yeah. And I bet that's a lesson that you have put to use many times, because especially as a woman in business situations, it's so easy to be undervalued and
perceived as difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking ahead now towards whatever comes next.
Yes.
What do you think our new normal in fashion is going to look like?
I mean, you know, in all honesty, I mean, I think this pandemic really turned the world upside down in every possible way. I do think there are a lot of silver linings in it that have come out for people. I do know a lot of brands that are thriving in the pandemic, which is both amazing and surreal. I think for us, we've really been okay and really, thank God, you know, doing well. But I think it's because we were already pivoting to D2C and we were already doing that. So I think that was super beneficial to us in the last 6 months. But I think in terms of fashion in the traditional sense, honestly, I cannot wrap my head around that going back to the way it was. Like not exactly the way it was, because already I think we were starting to see that people weren't feeling like they needed to physically attend things anymore because it's right online. I think there's no mystery anymore as to what it looks like the collection is showing. And because of social media, you're literally seeing it as it's happening, no matter where you are in the world. So I think no matter what, it has to change. But I think so many things are having to change right now that I think everybody's going to need a minute, like in terms of, you know, fashion weeks and things like that. I think, you know, there's so many brilliant minds in the fashion world. I think even just the amazing producers, you know, like Alex de Batac and, you know, all these amazing people that put on fashion shows. And I think they will come up with brilliant concepts to still deliver. But I think there's no question about it has to change. And I think the biggest factor right now is that people are buying in a different way and shopping in a different way. And I think, you know, it feeds, it's all this, right?
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt that you are going to continue to match that journey and that evolution, Rachel. So thank you so much for joining for this conversation today.